What's the most bizarre medical issue you've seen someone trying to hide or mask? Do you have any medical conditions? No. What medications are you on? Proceeds to name at least 10 medications. Oh, that's so true. Do you have any medical conditions, sir? Nope. Are you on any medications? Metoprolol. So, you have high blood pressure. No, the metoprolol keeps it down. Actual conversation I had with the guy a week ago. Any past medical history? Oh, high blood pressure, but that's it. No other history. Nope, that's it. Proceeds to take his shirt off. Sir, what is that huge scar on your chest? Oh, that's from my triple bypass. That's medical history, sir. Anything else you want to add in now? Oh, does CHF and diabetes count? I have those as well. Elderly people are the worst at this. They'll tell you they have no significant medical history, then when you look at their notes, you find out they've had 3 strokes, 2 heart attacks, and a touch of bowel cancer. That's why I always go with, have you ever had to go to the hospital or something to that effect? No question is truly foolproof, but that one at least is general enough that you might get more info than you need, rather than less. My favorite. Do you smoke? Oh heavens no! Have you ever smoked? Yes, but I've quit. How long ago? This morning. Once took an initial history from a patient who reluctantly admitted he'd had 2 heart attacks in the last 5 years. I started to ask him a bunch of follow-up questions and he got extremely huffy and defensive. It's not a big deal. If I'd known you were going to act like this, I never would have told you. This happened to me 3 days ago. A guy came in a wheelchair. Do you have any medical issues? No. Why are you in a wheelchair then? Oh, I have a degenerative neuromuscular condition and type 2 diabetes. In a weird way, I can kind of understand this if he'd been in the wheelchair for a while. I'm missing most of my left lung, and there were times when I answered no without thinking, because to me it's just me and not a medical anomaly. Each time my mum was like, "What the frick, you're missing a lung." I can see some poor med student doing a chest x-ray on you and trying to figure out why he can't find your lung while trying to play it cool. So, you've never felt like something's missing? This is hilarious. I'm going to have to ask some of my medical practitioner friends about their most egregious examples. Quitting smoking that morning and not considering yourself a smoker is either a great show of resolution or complete delusion. Not a doctor, but when I was working as a med tech in the ER, we had a 75-year-old male patient come in with an extraordinarily low blood pressure, think 70/40, and a ton of facial and upper body bruising. He was brought in via emergency medical services after the nurses at his nursing home found him on the floor in his room, where notably there was some blood on the wall. The guy wouldn't talk to us regarding why he was there, but was very talkative in terms of pretty much anything else. Sports, the news, etc. We eventually were able to get him talking after 4 hours, and he confessed that he'd wanted to take his own life and had taken the remaining amount of his prescribed nitroglycerin. Used for chest pain, it lowers your blood pressure rather quickly. Nitro is also the active ingredient in dynamite, but the amount in the pills is minuscule compared to what's in dynamite. And he had tried to blow himself up by running into the wall repeatedly. He was a really nice guy that sent a card to us after everything. He was just extremely lonely. Things to do today. Stop by bank and get quarters for laundry. Call brother and wish him happy birthday. Research nursing homes to volunteer at. I admitted a guy for pneumonia, which was odd because he was young and strapping, no other medical issues, and x-ray didn't look quite right. The pieces just didn't add up, so I started questioning him more closely. Do you use any substances? The patient said, Substances? That's disgusting. I'm no fricking junkie. I've never touched substances in my life. I moved on to other questions and suddenly, Look, doc, I just want you to know that I might have used white snow once or twice, years and years ago. I just snorted it though. That wouldn't cause this, right? How long ago? Like 10 years, maybe longer. It shouldn't be affecting you after this long. Well, more like 5. Years? Like 5 months ago. This goes on forever until he admits that he just got off a massive binge the day before, where he spent the past 3 days in a hotel with some loose women, smoking crystal non-stop. He finishes with, But I don't want you to think I'm one of those dirty junkies. No, I think you're the idiot who lied and was getting treated for pneumonia instead of getting the proper treatment for crystal lung, which is what he had. Here's a tip, I genuinely don't care. I'm not your mother, your spouse, or your priest. Don't waste my time and endanger your health spewing bullcrap. Whatever horrible, twisted thing you think is too shameful to talk about, I promise you, I've seen worse. Not so much bizarre as clever. I tested a patient who should have been positive for opiates, as I prescribed them. We do that too. The urine looked completely normal, but the test came back bizarre. He had an insanely high specific gravity, which means there's a lot of stuff dissolved in his pee. Sample was positive for opiates, but had zero confirmatory metabolites, what your body turns the medication into. Otherwise, the test was totally normal. It took me a couple of minutes to figure out how this was possible. The patient was selling their pills instead of taking them and didn't want to get caught. They crushed up the pill and put it into the urine. This made the test positive for opiates, but because it had never gone through the body, the testing machine had found no metabolites. I use the case to find the smart med student in the group now. As a former pain management patient, that idiot is why we can't have nice things. My aunt is a family doctor, so patients come to her with symptoms and she directs them towards a specialist based on her diagnosis. One day, an elderly husband and wife came into the office, and when asked why they'd come in, the wife responded, "His foot has been smelling for a while, and I finally convinced him to come and have it looked at." My aunt, not hard of smelling, concurred that his foot stunk. She asked him to remove his shoe and sock. When he removed his sock, the bone from his big toe fell out of his toe and onto the ground. Turned out he had a very bad case of gangrene that had eaten away the flesh of his toe. He knew something was wrong but was stubborn and didn't get it checked sooner. And my big toe hurts now after typing this. Had this happen to me too. A woman came in that was an IV substance user, and all her veins had collapsed, so she used her leg veins and got a massive infection in her leg. It was black when she came in. She had put up with the pain for 6 months. The leg was amputated, but she was kicked out after she was found up shooting up in the bathroom. Terribly sad. My mother, the medical professional of our family, had a 13-year-old girl who was 9 months pregnant, in the midst of labor, dilated to 10 centimeters, and crowning in the emergency triage, swearing until she was black and blue that she was a virgin and that nobody knew what they were talking about. Her mother stood on the sidelines, causing a commotion, demanding a real doctor make an appearance. Let's just say when the twins made an appearance 10 minutes later, they were all singing a different tune. I don't understand why people keep denying the undeniable. If your doc tells you that you're about to give birth, insisting on never having done the deed and being a virgin is quite pointless. Not sure of this particular girl's situation, but it's very possible that she actually believed that to be true at the time. It's called pregnancy denial, and it's considered a mental illness, I guess. It's pretty rare though, so I'm inclined to think that adolescents just don't always have proper foresight and she was just trying to stay out of trouble, and so she stuck to her story. She could also live somewhere that doesn't provide proper education on the subject, as that's a risk factor in young teen pregnancy. Alternately, she could have also been under the influence of a substance or persuaded to get drunk and then was taken advantage of. So it's possible that she didn't know, just extremely unlikely. I met a teenage girl with a full-term pregnancy ready to give birth, but her boyfriend insisted that the baby was premature because they only did the deed 6 months ago. After the baby was born, he just said that the baby grew really fast. Sure. Might be better if he never finds out, to be honest. Also, this group of stories feels like it's going to be yet another jaw-dropping example of how nowhere near enough people trust advice from their medical practitioners. A 60-year-old female came in after falling asleep and rolling on a pincushion. She had 3 2-inch needles in her left shoulder on the X-ray. We later found out she'd been trying self-acupuncture. My cousin told me about a patient who complained about her teat falling off all the time. She said she'd tried to glue it back on or use skincare creams to have it stick to her chest. Turns out she had, not sure what stage anymore, probably pretty bad, invasive lobular carcinoma. From what I remember, the tumor got so big that the skin was stretched quite a bit. Somehow, that plus friction led to an open, not healing and oozing wound which extended to the outlet valve of her chest. Well, nobody there understood how she didn't go to a doctor or a hospital earlier. Keep in mind this happened in Germany. She had a job, health insurance, and everything. My cousin's teat fell off. She didn't have cancer, it was just a botched bosom job. A friend's teat fell off after a reduction of her chest. She was out shopping the day after the stitches were removed and it literally fell off in her bra. She jumped in her car and sped to the doctor's office. A cop pulled her over. He didn't buy her story at first, then she showed him. He gave her an escort to the hospital. Internal medicine ward outside of New York City. 55-year-old lady was mute in the ED. Noted poor historian, but severely constipated, severe abdominal pain, needed rectal disempation, and more than just an acute workup, so gets admitted reluctantly to surgery. Next morning on rounds, she's talking a mile a minute, full-on detail about her diet and symptoms and family. Afternoon, back to mute and back to abdominal pain and constipation. 2 more days, same pattern. The team is stumped. She is blown away that we can't figure out what's wrong with her, and we feel the same way. Labs, imaging, consult teams, all coming up empty. Strict ins and outs, strict dietary restrictions, everything we can think of. The janitor comes in by chance and he's teed off that he has to change the paper towels so many gosh darn times in this one room. Seems like the whole floor is stealing them from her. Sure enough, patient has been consuming about 2,500 paper towels every 24 hours. The psych team comes in for the obligatory consultation, and of course she's mute. How do we get her to talk? 1 paper towel at a time. I think some poor intern got a paper out of that case. Hope she's doing well somewhere. I'm surprised surgery didn't figure out where the paper towels were going before the janitor. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below, and subscribe. Nurse here. One time I had a patient come in with insane intestinal trauma. Had to have his colon stitched up. Said he was fishing and fell. His rectum just happened to fall perfectly on a fishing pole. Must have been a wild night to be fishing in the buff. 1,000,000 to 1 shot, doc. 1,000,000 to 1. Yes. Yep. Undressed and fell on it injuries are an under-recognized problem. There should be a public health campaign about them. Too many people have gotten out of the shower, slipped and fell onto a box of cucumbers they kept in their bathroom. Not a nurse, but my mum works with nurses who have crazy stories. Here's 2 of them, both from ER nurses. A man came into the ER with a birthday candle in his wang. He'd stuck it in there to surprise his girlfriend on her birthday, but when he lit it, the melted candle wax stuck to him. And this is probably the weirdest one I've ever heard. An old woman came into the ER with a high fever, abdominal pain, dizziness, and a few other symptoms. She's showing signs of toxic shock syndrome, like when you leave a tampon in too long, so the doctor decides to check the woman to make sure nothing got stuck up there. Sure enough, she looks up there and half craps her pants when she sees 2 beady little eyes staring back at her. The doctor begins to pull it out, to which the old woman responds, "Put it back." Turns out the old woman, well past menopause, had gone to a bad witch doctor to get her help to get pregnant. The doctor's recommendation? Put a now dead turtle up there for a few days and she'd regain the ability to get pregnant. I don't think anything can outdo the turtle story, and I think I'm done reading these stories. Agreed. The story writer did good here. That turtle one will hurt me forever. I almost spewed at the turtle story. What in the name of Cthulhu? Agreed. Let's chalk another story onto the Made the Narrator Contemplate His Existence board. From a nurse friend. A guy came in with burns to his entire Johnson. He tried to say he got it by trying to shoplift a hot barbecue chicken from a deli down his pants. What he was really doing was doing the deed with the chicken. Not sure if this counts as hiding, but a patient we recently had tried to play off a rampant staph infection as just some leg swelling. Turns out that what he meant by that was that he'd had a horrible infection in and around his manly bits. Something known as Fournier's gangrene. Do yourself a favor and don't Google that. The swelling had gotten so bad that his eggplant had literally inverted. He later told us that he had to pee with a 5-gallon bucket held up to his crotch because he no longer had any idea where the pee was going to go. Since you're wondering, he went to emergency surgery within hours, which is likely to be the first of many surgeries. The only way to get rid of an infection like that is debridement in the OR plus a crap ton of antibiotics. Somehow this guy had no systemic signs of infection like fever or low blood pressure, etc., so thankfully he should pull through. Last I heard, he was likely to lose one of his testes, but I don't believe they were going to have to remove his whole Johnson. I know it's fun to talk about how gross this stuff is, but it's a very serious type of infection. This guy's life was definitely in danger, and thank goodness he didn't wait longer. I mean, I think I would have gone to the hospital long before I found out my eggplant could invert. I think mine just did invert reading this story. I've been sitting here for 5 minutes trying to find the ways to properly convey my horror. Oh my god, I don't even have a way. I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, they don't mean inverted, right? It's probably not what I'm imagining. Except I'm pretty sure it is what I'm imagining. I'm not sure I want you to confirm. You know what it looks like when a turtle retracts its head all the way into its neck skin? It was like that, but with pus. It's an image that will haunt me till my dying day. This only happened a couple of days ago, and I feel the need to share this heavy, disgusting burden. I'm a pharmacist, and a patient came up and asked me if there was gluten in white snow, because she has a gluten sensitivity. I suppose maybe someone, somewhere tried to cut white snow with flour. Still ridiculous, but I imagine she was quite serious. I actually have celiacs, and when I was in Amsterdam, I couldn't find gluten-free edibles. When I interned in the OB-GYN department, we had a lady sent to the ER due to bleeding in her hoo-ha. When she was examined, she had a massive tumor there, the size of a football, growing between her legs. Her husband was with her. Both said that it had just appeared and they had never noticed it before. There was absolutely no doubt that the thing had been growing for months. Sometimes, when in shock, people can be in denial of the most absurd things. I work in the lab, and the pathology department gets the foreign body items removed from a patient's body after surgery. Recent one was a chorizo sausage. Glad I wasn't there that day. A patient came in with chest pain, said they'd fallen and hit their chest on a table. X-ray was performed to evaluate for a rib fracture or a collapsed lung. The X-ray instead showed a long metallic foreign body in the left part of the chest within the heart. When questioned further, the patient admitted to lying and that they'd actually shot themselves in the chest with a nail gun. The wound wasn't bleeding, nor really noticeable. They were taken to the operating room and did quite well after open-heart surgery. Not a doctor, but an EMT. I had a guy who tried to tell us he fell while playing softball and hurt his ribs and arm. This was 10 o'clock at night. Came to find out he tried to screw his substance dealer out of some money, and the guy chased him down with a bat and beat him with it. So I guess he was kind of playing softball. Now that is breathtaking. Disguising your vicious beating as a trip and fell scenario is a bold move. Repeatedly falling onto the same bat all over your body is an incredible feat of clumsiness. Nurse here, and I'm late to the game. I've seen some serious crap, but in this story, the patient tried to hide something and I paid for it as well. Was working at a teaching hospital here in New Orleans as an agency nurse. Some of my fellow agency nurses can confirm when the staff nurses find out an agency nurse is coming in, we get the patients that the other nurses don't want to deal with. In essence, the crappiest patients on the floor, literally and figuratively. I got my reports and was walking rounds with the nurses going off shift. We walked by a patient's room and he wasn't there. Outgoing nurse says he's always going down to smoke, and that he's very demanding. He was a homeless patient there for an infected arm from IV substance abuse. I asked the nurse why he was being allowed to leave the floor regularly with an IV in his arm, and she just shrugged. About an hour later, my patient finally reappeared and shuffled into his room. I make a mental note to go into that room next for my assessment after I'm finished giving another patient their meds. I go to walk in and the door is cracked. I hear snoring, so I'm knocking, and as I open the door I say, "Hello, Mr. Addicted to Smack. I'm Sherry and I'll be your nurse today." He doesn't flinch. I know he's not dead because I could hear him breathing. I place my arm on his arm and gently shake him, and the guy comes out of it screaming like a wild bear, waving his arms, cursing, and flings a bag of white powder he's holding right at my face. I hit the code blue button because I'm legit terrified. The guy is freaking the frick out, and I look like Frosty the Blowman with a yet unidentified white powder in my hair, on my face, and shoulders of my scrubs. The code team runs in with a crash cart, sees me, sees freaking out patient, and grinds to a halt. Someone runs out and calls security, and a big fella of a respiratory therapist pins the guy down. Security runs in and handcuffs him to the bed. The nursing floor manager starts grilling him about the powder, and I hear him start insisting that it's baby powder, and I scared him while he was cleaning up, and he threw it on me. That's really the last coherent thought I had. I came to in the ER and got the story from the doc after all the security footage was reviewed. The guy was going downstairs, meeting his supplier and bringing the goods back upstairs, cutting his supply more with hospital-supplied baby powder that he'd been requesting for chafing, going back downstairs and having his customers meet him in the ER parking area. He had passed out after shooting up into his IV in the parking lot, and I came in and scared the crap out of him. He had thrown a baggie of smack and baby powder in my face. My husband had to come and get me, and I was given a note in case the agency tested me in the near future. I also had to give a statement to the police. It was simultaneously the best and worst day at work I'd ever had, and subsequently the last hospital shift I've ever worked. In conclusion, worked as a floor nurse, patient threw a bag of smack and baby powder in my face. I got messed up. Patient was arrested. A case of teenage pregnancy where Madam Mama was present. Patient was presented with amenorrhea and fatigue initially. Patient became visibly annoyed when the first test suggested is a pregnancy test. The patient and her mother insisted that she had never done the deed with anyone. Angrily, if I might add, even when the test results came back as positive. No, you quack! I'm telling you she never done the deed. Nurse here, I had a patient come in for a hip fracture. While helping her to the bathroom for the first time, the CNA noticed something hanging out of her hoo-ha. Turns out she walks around with a prolapsed uterus and thinks nothing of it. My late father was a surgeon and, when he was a resident, had a middle-aged male patient come in complaining of pain in the rectum. They examined him and found a toy lodged fairly deep. When they asked him how it happened, he looked extremely surprised that it was there and then explained, "I was lying in bed and it was on and vibrating on the bed near me, and it sort of moved on its own. I guess it found its way up my butt all by itself." Loved hearing emergency room stories from my dad, and it sucks that he's not around to tell them these days. There should be a sign up in the ER that says, "The sooner you fess up to cramming whatever it is up there, the sooner we can get it out. You won't shock us." No, really, try us. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.